Chapter 6: The Tribe Inside the Mind. One of the more uncomfortable realizations a person can have is that the tribe does not merely exist around us. It gradually takes shape within us. Most people think of tribalism as something external: political factions, religious groups, nations, ideological movements, sports fans, online communities, cultural camps. And certainly tribes do exist externally. Human beings organize themselves into groups constantly. But the deeper phenomenon is psychological. Over time, the tribe becomes internalized. Its language becomes our language. Its emotional reactions become our emotional reactions. Its moral boundaries become our moral boundaries. Its enemies become emotionally legible to us long before we consciously evaluate whether they deserve to be enemies at all. This process usually happens slowly and invisibly. No one wakes up one morning and consciously decides, "I will outsource portions of my perception and identity to the group." It emerges through belonging, through repeated emotional reinforcement, through approval, reward, imitation, fear of exclusion, shared outrage, common stories, synchronized language, and the subtle relief that comes from existing inside a framework where one already knows who is right, who is wrong, who belongs, and what must be defended. Tribes reduce uncertainty, and uncertainty is psychologically expensive. This is one reason ideological communities often feel emotionally comforting even when they are intellectually rigid. They provide orientation, identity, coherence, and belonging simultaneously. The individual no longer has to evaluate every question independently because the group already supplies interpretive shortcuts. What is good? What is dangerous? What is admirable? What is unacceptable? Who deserves empathy? Who deserves suspicion? What events mean? Which facts matter? Which questions are allowed? The tribe quietly narrows cognitive load, and the human mind often experiences this narrowing as clarity. This is part of why intelligent people can become deeply trapped inside distorted systems of thought while still experiencing themselves as highly rational. Intelligence alone does not free people from tribal cognition. In some cases, intelligence simply makes people more effective at defending the assumptions emotionally important to their group identity. Reason frequently becomes subordinate to loyalty without the individual consciously realizing it. This phenomenon is sometimes called identity protective cognition, the tendency for people to process information in ways that preserve alignment with emotionally important groups. Evidence threatening the tribe often feels psychologically threatening to the self. Contradictory information is therefore resisted not merely intellectually but emotionally. The person may genuinely believe they are pursuing truth while unconsciously protecting belonging. This dynamic exists across ideological, religious, cultural, academic, and political domains alike. No tribe is immune. And one of the more dangerous illusions human beings carry is the belief that tribal cognition only affects those people over there. In reality, the conviction that one stands completely outside tribal influence may itself become a form of tribal identity. Even communities organized around skepticism, rationality, individuality, or anti-conformity can become highly tribal. Human beings are remarkably skilled at transforming almost any shared orientation into identity. This is partly because identity itself carries emotional rewards. To belong to a tribe is not merely to hold certain beliefs. It is to experience recognition, safety, emotional synchronization, moral validation, shared meaning, and relief from existential uncertainty. The tribe tells people, "You are one of us." That sentence has enormous psychological power. And once belonging becomes emotionally fused with worldview, questioning the tribe becomes difficult. Doubt begins feeling disloyal. Curiosity feels risky. Ambiguity becomes uncomfortable. Complexity threatens cohesion. The individual may unconsciously avoid certain questions, not because they lack intelligence, but because the social and emotional cost of honest examination feels too high. This is one reason emotionally charged tribes often become hostile toward nuance. Nuance destabilizes certainty. Certainty stabilizes group identity. The tribe therefore rewards emotional alignment more reliably than independent reflection. People who mirror the group's emotional tone often rise socially within it. Shared outrage strengthens solidarity. Shared enemies intensify cohesion. Moral certainty creates emotional energy. Nuanced dissent, by contrast, may trigger suspicion because it weakens the emotional synchronization binding the group together. This dynamic can become especially dangerous when tribes begin treating disagreement not as error, but as evidence of moral corruption. At that point, the individual no longer merely disagrees with outsiders. The outsider becomes psychologically illegible as a fully human perspective holder. Empathy narrows. Complexity collapses. The world becomes morally simplified into categories of purity and contamination, ally and enemy, enlightened and dangerous. History repeatedly shows how destructive this can become. And yet, tribal psychology itself is not inherently evil. Human beings need belonging. We need shared language, shared meaning, shared rituals, shared emotional worlds, and communities capable of sustaining trust and cooperation. Complete detachment from tribe is neither realistic nor desirable. People who imagine themselves fully independent of all social influence are often simply unconscious of the influences operating upon them. The goal, then, is not to eliminate tribe. The goal is to prevent unconscious possession by tribe. That distinction matters enormously. A person can participate in communities consciously while still preserving the capacity for reflection. They can belong without surrendering the ability to question. They can love their group without requiring absolute certainty about it. They can remain emotionally connected while resisting total identity fusion. But this requires awareness. It requires noticing. When outrage is socially rewarded, when loyalty is replacing truth-seeking, when fear of exclusion is shaping perception, when identity is constraining curiosity, when certainty feels emotionally necessary, when belonging is silently directing thought. Most people do not notice these forces because tribal cognition rarely feels like tribal cognition from the inside. It feels like obvious reality. This is part of what makes the unexamined mind so difficult to examine. The tribe does not simply tell people what to think. It gradually shapes what feels thinkable. And perhaps one of the most difficult tasks of the examined life is learning how to remain connected to human community without allowing the crowd to fully colonize the inner world.